for January 10th, 2024. Before we get started into the agendas, does anybody have any announcements they'd like to share?
Yes, Ulysses is just, last night and this morning and just now put out a new version of Node.js 20. So we did have a few technical issues with that, but we believe they've been fixed now. So Node 20 should be available and installable, through your regular channels. And big thanks to Ulysses because he started that before Christmas. So it's been a while in gestation.
That's good news. Any other announcements? Okay, we'll move on to CPC and board meeting updates. I guess, Matteo, any updates on that front?
So there is, I think the most relevant one is the discussion regarding the community fund or travel fund. Part of the discussion that the board had last year, at the end of last year, was about having the rules for applying to the fund for the travel fund revamped a little bit, and things are progressing fast. Almost because we are probably even Node.js is targeting a collaborator summit in around April. So if possible, and if that happens, then people will need to apply. So we will need to have some rules for that, essentially. So TLDR work is being done for that.
Yeah, and I guess good heads up that it may affect people's the application process and or criteria, that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
so.
there will be it will be generically it will be less of a free-for-all camp, essentially, generically as it seems. So regarding that, still we don't have a news for our room for the collaborator summit, but things are, I think, positive. So you should folks think a little bit about it. If you want to be in London, you might want to book. It's not book, but at least pencil it in your calendar for that week.
Yeah, I guess the key question would be that I still wonder about is there was mention of having a track at the conference, a node track. Yeah. Is that
it's still in play if we
still
get
in play? Yeah, okay. Because I suspect that helps people, if there's a CFP and people can submit.
Yeah. Well, we told people to apply to the CFP, there. But yeah, we can. I need to check. If we go through, if that goes through, we will need to do it. We'll need to do it essentially. But it needs to go through first. We need to confirm it first. Actually, the people at the conference are chasing me. So
right, yeah, okay. I'm sure they would be like, hey, if we're going to announce an extra track or have an extra, because they'll probably even need an extra room, right?
They have already the room, so the room is
they have room. Okay.
They have this. They have the room, so it's more for us if they want it.
Okay.
We want it.
Okay, no, that's a definitely good thing to hear. So as long as we want it, it can happen.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other announcements update? No. Okay. Sorry. No more. No. Anyway, not announcement. CPC or board meeting updates. On to the next thing then. The issues tagged to the agenda. First one: revisiting global this as an event target. This is 51372. If you added this to the agenda or are in the loop, then please jump in.
I am in the loop. I don't know if I added it to the end or somebody else did. There is no clear there is no clear conclusion in the discussion if we want to make global this an event target or not.
Okay.
More specifically, okay, there is a PR open, okay, which has no LGTM, okay. Quite a few people have said that they like it, okay. Others are not liking it, including myself. Okay. Generically, it's yeah, that's it essentially.
Okay, so it's on the agenda effectively as a FYI.
It's on
or
the
like-
agenda essentially on this is contention, and we will need to make a decision. Like it's not going to end up being a clean cut. This is
Okay.
it's not down to a vote yet. It's more of please make your mind about it. Okay, it will end up as a vote, very likely.
Okay. So
Also, it can also
it's-
impact quite a lot of people. So it's a December major PR, so we will need to make a decision before February, essentially. But yeah, essentially, that's it.
Okay, so it could cause a fair amount of breakage. Is that the
Yeah.
okay?
Similar to Navigator or something like that. But so the major point is not just making it an instance of global this, is about the also making a global this, but also supporting the standard events. Okay, this is the interesting question. Okay, and for example, should we support the an under rejection and rejection handle event on global this? Okay. Should we have an equivalent of should we have error, the error event that maps to on-code exception, and how are those behaviors interacting with the ones that we have on process? Okay, so it's not just about to make it a global this instance. It's if it's a global this instance, people will expect to behave similar to other runtimes and so on and so forth. So if that's the case, then yeah, no, you see where I'm going. Okay, I'm just trying to. If we need to implement them, then it's we need to figure those things out.
Right.
It might not be.
We're in or we're out. We're not. It's not a like we'll do a little bit. It's kind of.
I don't think, like, given our experience on Navigator, I don't think doing a little bit seems viable.
Right.
I don't know if that approach did not work well. So not.
Yeah.
So either we are in or we are out. Okay. If we are in, it needs to support all or support the majority of it. Okay. There might be some quirks or words, whatever, but we example the message one for whatever might not be possible, but still we will need to do some stuff like that. So
right. Okay.
So anyway, I please make your mind. Okay, it's not. It's it might not be that we might even decide. Okay, we are not going to target this for 22. Okay, given all the intricacy on the rejection flows and so on and so forth. But just say we might want to target it for 23. Okay, so
does it like just a quick question, like in my mind, I was just wondering, because it sounds like, you know, you want to have it complete before you actually have it public.
It might be under flag.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Like, would it make any sense to basically say, like, yeah, we're okay with it, but only enabled by a flag, and only once we're confident it covers, like, it's fully compatible, then we might unflag it, right?
Yeah, this might be a good approach.
Okay. So that is at least an option. Okay, that's good.
I don't see why not. We have flags for everything, so it might be why not. So
okay.
But again, the major problem is it might, like, there's not much code, like it's not a major pain from my point of view on it's on us. Okay, so but to be honest, I don't know. So it's please read the issue. It's been
okay. The next one is inconsistent behavior of NextTick and queue microtask. I know there was a little bit of discussion that in previous meetings, and I think Robert, do you want to bring us up to speed?
Yeah, I haven't had so much time in the last week to look into that. I opened, I think, 2 different PRs trying to resolve this in different steps. So I think I open one PR that is trying to resolve this only for our internal calls. And there, I think there's some disagreement whether this new NextTick variant should be available, half available publicly, or if it should be a fully private symbol. But there is progress in the PR. And then I open another PR that does this change behind an experimental flag. But I think, if we're going to add this as an experimental thing, then I think we should at least have some kind of agreement that it would be possible to make this unexperimental at some point in the future. I don't know what you think about that, Matteo. You looked a little bit into the breakage. Was it just the tests that broke or something more realistic?
All of it. Like it's the breakage is it's on things like the problem is not just our breakages, okay? It's on the ecosystem. Like the tests that are being broken are tests on streams, okay? And if we make some assumption on the ordering of event in streams, that those changes, then people will make similar assumption in the ecosystem, okay? So I don't think we can change the behavior of NextTick, okay?
But then, yeah, in order to get out of this rabbit hole that we're in, the only way forward I could see then is that we introduce another API call and deprecate NextTick and ask everybody to start using that instead.
Pretty much. Yeah. Well, we will not be able to deprecate NextTick, so, but yeah.
Yeah, well, encourage usage of it.
Yeah. But again, it's everywhere. So.
Yeah. So, but then I guess there's no point actually in this experimental PR. Then we should just have a new one that we call QTick or whatever.
Yep. Yeah, something like that.
Really next.
Yeah, really next.
Or we could just have some fancy wrapper on top of Q microtasks that are less overheady. So, or maybe there is no overhead in using just Q microtask. So,
I think a Q microtask is not sufficient.
Okay, so then yeah, we will need a different one, a new one.
Yeah, I mean, just for everybody's information, this is a problem with our old way of doing with events and callbacks and those in combination with async await and promises. And you kind of need to have some kind of way of scheduling that, and Q microtask is not sufficient for that. I think a few people missed that in the PR. Maybe I should explain it even better. I will open a new PR then and sort this out.
Okay, so are we leaving this one on the agenda as like FYI, just as a reminder, or should we take it off the agenda at this point?
I think we can take it off the agenda at this point.
Okay.
Can I just ask one question about that before? Yeah. When you explain why Q microtask is insufficient, can you also explain, I'm assuming this is the case, why it can't become sufficient somehow? Like, is there some version of improving Q microtask that can handle promises or something like that? I'm assuming the answer is no, because you probably would have thought of it, but that would be a good thing to do.
The problem is that the Q microtask is reentrant. I'll explain it in the PR.
I don't mean to explain it right now.
There is a very clear, nice example for which is not enough. Okay, we have a nice
example. That in the write up because I would love to read that.
We spent an hour to understand it. Me and Robert on a call.
Thanks.
All right.
Okay, the next issue is enable Corepack by default 50963. Just I don't know if anybody has any conversation to add or to.
The Corepack, right?
Yeah.
So I added that a couple of weeks ago. I didn't have any time to join up until now. So I basically wanted to progress on the Corepack integration. And if like I basically didn't see any improvement or development in the past X amount of months, and whether or not we should continue down this path, I think it's time to make a decision about either making a progress on Corepack and enable it by default, or just removing it from our like just deleting the project and removing, because there isn't like the ambiguity is creating friction on both all of those package managers, and I'm unhappy about being forced to install npm even though I'm using pnpm as the default, and other package managers and developers have the same concerns as well. So that's my personal motivation. And I wanted to ask the overall consensus about whether we should enable it by default, because if we don't enable it by default, there's no way for this to be impactful. And without that, there's no way for us to remove npm as a dependency of node binary.
I think the last comment, sorry, Matteo had his hand up. I'll let you go first.
Michael, there is Joey in the attendee that needs
thank
promotion.
you. Yeah, thanks.
And so my point here, I have 2 data points. Okay, two discussion. First, I think Node.js shipping a package manager by default, okay, was one of the key things that made Node.js gain so much popularity, and I don't think we should stop. Okay. Also, on top of that, npm prefers to be shipped with Node for obvious reason. And I to be honest, I do not see a good reason, a good technical reason to migrate them out. Okay. But this is, my point. I'm not, it's more, we are moving into a political realm more than, and being fair and not picking winners, whatever, than the rest. There is an advantage of shipping npm with Node, okay, which is on the stability of the build. Okay, so if I do npm install if I do npm install, I know, and if I install Node, I know that there is that version of npm in. Now, Corepack has a nice feature, which I've learned, which does automatic hashing of the version of the package and put it inside, store it inside the project so that you can keep reusing it. However, it's not enabled by default. That's not how people use it. Okay, this is the problem. Okay, so and this is my problem with something like Corepack. You don't have reproducible builds. You lose reproducible builds with it. Okay, and this is somewhat problematic from my point of view. I'm just saying it's possible to have reproducible builds. It's just people are not doing that. Okay. And the typical use case is not with having a fixed version of the package manager. They should. That's it. So it's yeah, that's my point. I'm also, conveying what I spoke about this with Miles a little bit. So this is also they prefer to be shipped as part of Node and not be as part of Corepack, essentially. So generically, that is something.
I just wanted that. I see a couple of people that have their hands up, but I got mine up first. So I just wanted to say, I think the key discussion to have then, like, if the reason to market is stable is to remove NPM, if like that's the goal that people have in mind, that that's the goal we should discuss as opposed to making it stable or not. Because, if we make it stable, but then we don't do that, and that's really what people wanted, then it maybe made no sense to make it stable. And that's where I think we have the biggest divergence in thoughts, right? Like, some people are like, hey, it should be, we want to take it out. Other people are, no, it makes sense to leave it in. So that's just what I wanted to sort of clarify. You were next in terms of hands.
Yep. So my main concern is that what Matteo said is summarizes the whole situation that we're in. We are not making a decision about adding new package managers to be distributed by Node.js, but we are not also talking about removing NPM. So this gives a strategic advantage over, this gives NPM a strategic advantage over other package managers. And I think Node.js should be in the correct place about whether to give advantages or disadvantages over something. And as a user, in order to install another package manager, I have to use npm right now. So I recommend either enabling Corepack by default and removing npm, or recommend shipping pnpm yarn with Node as well. But then the question becomes, Bun has an installer as well. So are we going to ship Bun with Node? And then the answer becomes much more obvious. So it's like a slippery slope on both ends has its concerns, but not making a decision is the worst thing, in my honest opinion.
Yeah.
And then Robert's next.
Yeah, also, I mean, we're just moving one. I mean, this becomes a political issue. Whatever we do, I think removing npm from Node is not an option, realistic option. So, and then we add this different thing again, Corepack, and are we going to go into this discussion again with the package manager? Should we have a package manager also later? Like, where does this end?
So I just wanted to learn, why do you think that removing npm is not a possible scenario out of this situation that we're in?
Well, basically what Matteo said.
So according to
people expect npm to be there for historical reasons. So, you know, this unfairness, you could argue, but without npm, Node wouldn't be what it is. So there is a historical and expectation question here.
It would essentially be a huge breaking change. Like, think of all the Node version managers out there that like switch a version of Node and a version of npm at the same time. Like, there's a lot of things that would break if we were to just take npm out.
And all we're solving is a political issue.
Yeah. Also,
as an engineer, I'm not very happy
like,
about political.
So, but this is not a political decision as well. We are shipping extra, we're increasing the bundle size for people that doesn't use npm. So if you're looking from an engineer perspective, reducing bundle size should be a goal of Node.js as well, right?
Sorry, I missed. Say that again.
Like removing npm reduces the bundle size. So as an engineer, one of our goals would be to reduce the bundle size of the binary that we ship, shouldn't it? So there are lots of other things. Like if I were like I'm a contributor to PNPM, but like if I were another company or whatever, if I'm a competitor of GitHub or like npm, and I wanted to ship and I wanted to have like a competitor advantage of it, this would be a huge problem. I don't know how EU regulations are, but I think there's like a particular case in GDPR and EU regulations regarding how one competitor shouldn't have a single competitor advantage over another in the same set of area. But because we don't have a company that pursued this path, we don't have these claims. But again, this becomes much more political, but I'm okay with not doing anything as well. I'm okay with deleting Corepack as well. But one of the one of those readmes in Corepack, I couldn't find it, but it says that the goal is to have like a competitor advantage and for other package managers to exist in the same space that npm lives. So
just to the legal part, I mean, I don't think that is a problem, but I don't think we here actually can determine whether that is a problem or not. And solving a problem that we don't know is a problem before it's a problem seems a little bit waste of resources.
Okay, I found documentation in Corepack design.md that mentioned this sentence.
Right now, that's in the Corepack repo, which I know is now under the node repo, but that probably, you know, reflects. I don't think we've had the consensus across the TSC that we were going to, like, you know, that some people be, yeah, like it's a political problem, but like it's not worth the breakage to fix that political problem. Other people have wanted to get that changed. So I can understand how that's there, but I don't think that really reflects a decision that was made by the project to do one thing or the other yet. Richard has his hand up.
Yeah, it's mainly to say that I don't think any amount of discussion here is going to solve this problem. If we want to make a decision, we're going to have to force a vote. That's the only way the TSC can make a decision on this, because I think the viewpoints are diverse enough that you're not going to get an agreement through, you know, just consensus and everyone agreeing. I think eventually someone is going to need to force a vote to say, you know, here are the options. TSC has to vote and go by the, you know, the voting rules on that. That is, I think this is contentious enough that I just can't see that we can, you know, no amount of discussion is going to result in a you know, obvious solution that everyone is okay with.
I see Matteo has his head.
So I propose, okay, we remove npm from Corepack, okay, and we enable Corepack by default. And if we want to have a vote, let's have a vote on the removal of npm, because that's the contention part, from my point of view. Okay, I think we can probably find an agreement in enabling Corepack. I think enabling Corepack by default without npm, I hope it's not as contentious as everything else. Okay, and I think we can convene with as a good middle point, and then move it. The discussion on removing npm as its own thing. Okay, I want to separate the two topics because I think the two topics are one is useful for people, for the end users. Okay, and one is useful for people, and the other one for people that want to use the new package, and then the other package managers, versus the other is more contentious. And it's going to break a lot of other people that don't need it, that breakage, that are not asking for that breakage. So again, I think it can help and help us move forward here.
Jeffrey, you want to put your hand up? Oh, sorry, Jeffrey's got his hand up next.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, don't we offer alternate? I mean, if the goal is just to reduce the bundle size, like there's the two goals, the not picking a winner goal, which is sure that's a separate political question, but the technical goal of shipping a smaller bundle, like don't we already? I know we offer a way to build Node without internationalization, but don't we offer that binary as a download too? I think.
No,
No.
you got.
No, okay. Well, I was gonna say like we could just offer more downloads, like for each binary, for each version of Node, offer the, you know, the big version and then the minimal version, and then the minimal doesn't have internationalization, doesn't have npm or whatever.
We've had that discussion, and nobody's agreed because of the extra work it takes to keep binaries. Like every binary we publish is extra work and more things to happen.
One person's minimal is another person's, hey, you're missing this highly critical piece of Node.
Right.
Like you can compile Node without
people
SSL, for example, which, you know, a lot of people would say is less used.
I mean, it is possible to build Node without npm bundled in. Some distros do that, and then npm is a separate package you can install. So it's not like it's impossible to do it as it stands. I think Yagi's had his hand up next.
Yes, so regarding Matthew's voting, if you're voting for removal of npm, the alternative should be adding more package managers to Node.js binary. It's not like should we remove npm, yes or no question. It's like if we want to make things right, let's vote either removing npm or adding more package managers, because the middle ground is where we are right now. If you don't remove npm, then we are back we started. And regarding Geoffrey's recommendation, if we distribute without npm, then the question is, if you want to stay on the same ground, then why don't we ship Node.js with and without PNPM as well? So then it becomes we're going to have all different builds for different package managers. And that's what I wanted to say, what I wanted to create. I wanted to have a middle ground where I have the same ease of use by using any Yarn or whatever the package manager is for my particular use case. And I don't want to make a package manager get installed harder than another package manager, or I don't want to install another package manager to install another package manager, sort of thing. I hope that clarifies my motivation for pursuing this path.
Robert's next.
Yeah, does it even make sense to add Corepack if we don't remove npm?
That was along my lines. Like, if we're going to have a vote, I think we should make it that part come out clearly, because like if people's real desire for Corepack is just to address the perceived unfairness, then having this extra component we have to maintain and, downloads code, and I don't know, there's certainly been people express concerns with that aspect of it. So I don't think we want to have it if it doesn't even address the concern that the people who are advocating for it want.
Yeah, because the functionality that Corepack provides, you can basically already achieve with npm. You just do npm I npm. No? And Matteo disagrees with me. Could we move to him
On
directly?
to Matteo. I think
Yeah,
people
so
put their hands down.
So the key, okay. So it does, if you enable Corepack, okay, when you type npm something, pnpm, it would work. Okay, it will work behind the scene and do its job. Okay, that's what Corepack does. Okay, that's great. And from my point of view, so these, however, has two problems, as a big, massive technical problem. Okay, it's by default, if you install a node version, if you pull in a node version, you have absolute clarity on the version of npm that you're going to get, and you can have a clear build. Corepack, if you use Corepack, you don't, and people don't have a clear build. Okay, and this is a time bomb for maintainers in the ecosystem. Okay, so removing npm from that would be a massive time bomb for the ecosystem. Okay, and this is the major problem. Okay, if because it doesn't store, like by default, it does not store the hash of what is. Like if you could have essentially a reproducibility of it, then a lot of by default, my concerns will be addressed. The other part is we tend to, responding to your GIF, okay? We tend to, so this is the first problem. There is with Corepack, there's no reproducibility on the build, okay? If you have a Docker image, most people who says Corepack enable, or if it's enabled by default, it just do pm install, and then you don't know which version of npm you're getting, and tomorrow your build will not work anymore, and you start blaming us big time. So it's basically giving people a foot gun to shoot themselves. It's bad, okay, from my point of view. It's the way people have seen using it today. Okay, people are using it today in this way, and people are relying on the fact that the expectation right now is when you do npm with Node.js npm install inside on a fresh install system, you get that specific version of npm that we are shipping. Okay, it's not a moving target. So there is that. Okay. On the other problem, on what Robert was saying, Robert said that PNPM does not. You need to install it. No, it does install it. Yes, but it's completely the jumper pattern is fantastic. Okay, so it's great for users. If you enable Corepack by default, you will not. You will just type PNPM, and the end user experience will be identical. Okay, minus the problem of the versions that I mentioned. But this is
Richard has his hand up.
Yeah, that part about not getting, not knowing what you get when you install Corepack and run Corepack enable. I believe the original versions of Corepack did only install a known version of like PNPM when you did Corepack enable PNPM. And I believe we as a project, or an issue was raised saying that meant that you would always get this back level version of PNPM. It may have been on one of the package managers. So there was a change so that it now, pulls down a most recent one. I guess that, if we really want to go down the route, we can solve that problem within Corepack. I mean, it's a behavior we used to have that was changed. I presume we could change it back.
yes.
Part of the
problem was that version number was not kept up to date.
Well, the problem there was that in order to update it, you needed an updated version of Corepack. I mean, that was the issue there.
Again, it's yes. So
And
it needs to be
again, that
something
comes
that the
back down
Node.js
to-
project, from my point of view, if it's something that the Node.js project control, then it's less of a problem. So
Well, I think the challenge there is like, we could one of the things we get by including a package manager is managing CVs, getting fixes, and so that is a cost we pay by having NPM bundled, right? And adding more, like effectively, I think pinning the version pulls in the other package managers, because now effectively a vulnerability in one of those means we've got to bump our version number. Does that mean we now have to do that in a security release? I think it like pulls in a lot of the same extra overhead and work that we would have of bundling it in directly. And that's where like the trade-off, I'm not sure it's worth it, right? Like for a little bit of improvement in UI, like if it's really just the user experience part, that little bit for the extra work that we would have to do, I don't know, right? Like I can see people who feel that like absolutely the political issue is a challenge, like, but as its own, the having to like enable a flag or do an npm install once versus the extra work of having to manage all those vulnerabilities and stuff for the project, that's where I have trouble. I think I kind of agree with Richard that like we probably are not going to come to an agreement. And maybe I tried to put in like the key questions because as Robert mentioned, like if we're not going to remove, if it's not a goal to remove npm, then like does Corepack make sense at all is a reasonable question. I think Yagiz said like I'm good with like either making it stable and removing npm at some point or removing it, but like the in-between one doesn't, so I think it'd be good to make sure that if we do include it and have that extra work, and that people actually believe that that's worthwhile versus an in-between one that nobody thinks is a good idea. So I have 3 questions. I don't know, like if this represents what we really need to, vote on is like, we agree our goal is to remove npm from node.js, or for like yes or no. If we're not going to remove npm, should Corepack be included in node.js? And then should we enable Corepack by default, yes or no? Maybe it's like at this time.
I would love to have, if we go down the vote route, which is personally fine, I would love if it's added, add Corepack, but remove npm, but keep npm in. And essentially, yes, it's possible. you just drop the jumper from npm. You enable the others. You can do what you establish more as easier as open ground for everybody. Okay, without breaking anybody else. So
Corepack won't
basically,
Corepack doesn't create an npm jumper unless you force it to. It's specifically Corepack special cases npm at the moment.
so again, sorry, can you repeat, Richard? I'm lost you.
Corepack does not create an npm jumper by default. It won't. If you do Corepack enable, it doesn't touch npm at all.
Oh,
that's
okay.
That was a deliberate decision.
Okay, so the current behavior is
npm is treated completely separate. I think it's possible to force Corepack to install npm, but you have to go out of your way to do it. It's not a default behavior of Corepack.
Then it's fine. Then my point is not needed. I am in favor of enabling Corepack. I'm against removing npm.
Right. So like these would be the three questions. Like, okay, is our goal to remove npm? Yes or no? And obviously if the answer is, then the next one is like, if we're not going to remove npm, should we include Corepack? And then finally, should we enable Corepack today? Right. So, Matteo, I think from what you're saying, you'd be like, no, yes, and yes, right? Like that's the way to say what I think you were saying, right? In terms of what you believe. I don't know if that, sorry, Jeffrey, go ahead.
I wanted to, I feel like, so first off, I feel like we would probably do this as a some of our major change, right? Because Corepack is distributed with Node right now, right? So the earliest that this would happen would be in April. So it's not like this is urgent that we make a decision on this soon. What I'm wondering is how popular is Corepack? Like I've never used it personally. I don't know anyone who's ever used it. If we remove npm from Node and people have never heard of Corepack and don't know how to install npm once they upgrade Node and npm is gone, are we just creating like a mountain of frustrated users who now don't know how to do anything? Because like, you know what I mean? Like I don't know. We did our last survey, I think, in April of 2023. Maybe we're going to do another one soon, or hopefully well before April 24. Like, I would love to know, like, maybe we include a question in there is like, do you know what Corepack is? Have you ever used it? Do you use it in your project? Something along those lines. Because like I feel like we need to understand the impact of whatever change we might make before doing it, because this could be extremely disruptive if if the npm command is just gone all of a sudden.
I agreed. I guess, do we think doing that investigation before might affect the vote?
I mean, I feel like it should, wouldn't it? Like, shouldn't having more information potentially affect a decision?
Yeah, is it really like, I guess for me, right? Like I I don't know if anybody would think that removing npm isn't going to be like a severe challenge, like isn't going to cause a lot of breakage. I guess Yigis has his hand up.
So without making breakage, we could just add an npm bash script that says that npm is removed, you need to install or whatever, or to reduce those frictions so that they don't need to rush into the GitHub issues to look into what happened. So that we might find some common ground to fix or reduce the friction there, but regardless, this is going to make a difference. But if we're talking about the downsides of making this decision, I think we should also talk about the upsides of these kinds of decisions for the ecosystem and for other package managers, because right now there's only one single registry, and having this opportunity for other package managers, it might be good for the ecosystem, and new registries might be populated and be used.
Right, but is that really our problem? Like, yeah, anything that's good for the JavaScript ecosystem in general is good for Node, but we're just responsible for our project and the user experience of our users.
But we are the people that are responsible for creating the current status that we are in. Regardless of the reasons in the past, that's irrelevant, but we created this current situation that is package manager has more rights and much more usage, much more exposure than the other ones. And yeah.
So Roy has his hand up. And then I think after that, we're gonna have to we only have 8 minutes left, so we probably should close on this for today and we can continue discussion in I guess a future meeting. Roy, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I just want to reiterate, let's not underestimate the impact. I've been working, in my day-to-day job, I've been working a lot more close with folks from other ecosystems, all the different types of profiles. There are a lot of people that just need to run something where and they are used to having Node and npm command available, right? And they have all these scripts that maybe will just be npm run of some script that they have in the project where that was something else. But this is a drastic change. Yeah, it's going to kind of break the board. So just want to reiterate it. Got to be an informed, well-informed decision. Yeah, and just want to reiterate it.
Yeah, I guess we should move on. I guess
Can I just add one last thing?
Sure.
I think Yikis or whoever wants to be the champion for this, rather than having a vote on a menu of options, I think whoever wants to be the champion should maybe write a proposal that includes these details of what's the migration path, what are we going to do for people who are confused, and then run the npm command, blah blah blah. And it's here's a proposal, or one or two alternatives or something like that, and then we can vote on that, and then the proposal can address all these concerns, and maybe the proposal could be drafted, we iterate on it for a while to make it as good as it can be before voting, because I don't know, maybe this has been talked about a whole bunch of meetings before and I'm just new to it, but it feels like there's a lot that hasn't been worked out yet and a lot of information we don't have at least written down yet.
There's one more thing I get to add, but I don't want to speak for the current npm team. I think it might be important to maybe have Miles on this call or someone else from the team. But it has been mentioned in the past that it might be against some the distribution license of npm, having it be distributed with Corepack. So there is that to be considered too, right? If we remove npm, then it might not be usable with Corepack at all, right? So I think it's something important to also make sure that we're getting about it.
So I think the current proposal is I think in my mind, we shouldn't just make Corepack stable unless we've resolved this other issue. If the real desire is to remove npm, we should probably have an agreement on that before we make it stable. So that if the question is, do we want to block making a more formal proposal for the removal of npm on that or not, I think too. Okay, so sorry, next one then is lib promote process binding tick callback to runtime deprecation. I know there was discussion ongoing on that. There's a proposal. Just seeing, I don't know if there's anything to discuss in the meeting this week.
I think we can go back to GitHub, and if you have have a time, please take a look at the issue. I'll paste the TSC issue in the chat. But yeah, I think we can move the discussion to GitHub.
Okay, the next one is mvar node v8 coverage intermittently causes the process to hang. I think
So-
Matteo, you kept this, go ahead.
There's a PR that addresses this that's landed on main. It's not gone out in current yet, so it needs to go out in current and then, live
Yeah,
in current
it's,
for at least 2 weeks. And if that's fine, then, it'll be backported to
the
LTS.
issue was closed. It was technically fixed, but let's keep. Yes, it's not on the TSC agenda. It was removed, so we can skip. It's fixed. In theory, it's fixed.
Okay,
Yeah, I just removed the tag.
okay, excellent, okay. That's great news. Okay, the next one is lib, rewrite async local storage without async hooks. This is number 48528. I'm trying to see why it's on the agenda.
There was maybe Joy knows about this. There was like some big patch for V8 that Stephen was.
So Stephen added this to the agenda because the rating is reluctant to accept this accept the VA patch that is based on in the upstream because of some concerns, I guess, related to performance or something. So the idea that Stephen had was whether we can float this giant patch in our VA fork. I think so far what we have in the pull request was that that's probably not a good idea. Let's wait until the VA team accept it in the upstream, or just try not to float a big patch in our fork.
Well, one point to mention that VID is has been discussing about removing the API that is the fundamental of this PR. So floating the patch means that we have to maintain this whole API on ourselves, while VID might not be going to continue the maintenance of the API.
Of which API?
It's
Hooks
called
itself?
CPED, which is an abbreviation of continuation context preserved continuation data, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, so it's
Yeah.
actually worse. It's worse than just the patch itself. You're saying that in addition to that patch, we would have to end up then maintaining a bunch of other code which could be removed at some point.
Well, the plan is not clear, so yeah, that's the whole point of floating the patch. They may not going to remove the API, and they may going to remove the API.
But if they did remove it, then floating the patch would no longer be enough. We would need to like float the revert, and not, I don't know, that sounds to me like even riskier, right? Like if there was an API that was never going to change because it had been the same for 20 years, that's better than something which we could end up like having removed underneath us as well.
Well, yeah. Since I'm the champion of the async context proposal, and we are discussing about the implementation of VID in the TC39 to being able to support the to advance the async context proposal. So, but the path forward on VID implementation is not clear at this moment. So yeah, that's the idea behind that.
Okay, it sounds like there's some discussion in the PR. Is there any like decision by the TSC that's needed at this point, or is it on for an FYI and we can just leave it on for another week since we're near the end?
I guess a quick temperature poll would be like how willing are we to float this patch in our fork? If that's if the general consensus is that it's a good idea or it's something that we can accept, we can at least give some feedback in the issue.
We could take a straw, like of the people here, we can say like of the 8 people here, is anybody in favor of floating the patch? Like I'm willing to say I don't think I'm in favor. You know, I understand it'd be nice to get some functionality, but it seems like a risk we wouldn't normally take.
I kind of wonder what's the alternative though. Like, or if like we need to retire async hooks at some point. So it's sort of like, what's the path forward between here and there? Like if V8 just sits on this indefinitely and never fixes what Steven needs, and we don't float the patch, then what? Are we just stuck with async hooks? You know what I mean? Like, how do we ever transition off of it and retire that API?
The alternative is async context, and that's moving forward. So hopefully,
The
Right, the
alternative is
proposal,
What?
the TC39 proposal, I think, is moving forward, and once that's complete, I think my understanding is we could probably provide a lot of async local storage based on top of it.
Yeah, my understanding is that if V implements that, which is kind of a different story, but there is another alternative, and if that goes through, this would not be needed, and async local storage can be based on top of that instead.
Yeah.
Also
that-
a forfeit thing. Sorry.
Okay, so how optimistic are you, and what's the time frame look like?
Yeah, you need to ask.
Well, I cannot speak for the Viet team because they don't have a concrete plan on if they are going to deprecate the CPED, but we are we as a small group working in TSA are gathering data to convince their team to unblock the async context proposal, and so hopefully we may be able to move forward in the 2024 so that we can start implementing the async context and landing it in V8. So, but we are still working to convince V8 team about the proposal.
Okay, well, if this seems promising for now, then I guess why wouldn't we kind of wait and see until, only go to our less appealing options if this doesn't work out?
Well, yeah,
Okay, well, it sounds like we didn't, like, we're past our time. We didn't easily get a, hey, let's say this is what the people in the meeting thought, so we'll leave it on the agenda till next time. And I don't know if there's anything, I think we've already, Matteo mentioned there's still waiting for the Collaborator Summit in terms of an update there. So, yet. And since we're past time, I think we'll skip strategic initiatives. Is there anything we need to discuss before we close out then? Okay, if not, thanks for everybody's time, and we'll see everybody next time.